Madam President, I think that most Americans would agree that it's important that we strike a proper balance between abundant and affordable energy and responsible standards of environmental performance. But too often in recent years, the energy-environmental balance has been lost. Restoring a sense of equilibrium is important for both the health of the American people and our nation's economy. And although we see the need for this balance just every day in Alaska, restoring it has become what I think is a national challenge, and that's why I support Senator Inhofe's resolution to disapprove the mercury and air toxic standards, or the MACT rule. Congress has tasked the EPA with implementing laws to protect public health. That statutory obligation absolutely requires respect. But although the executive branch gets to make reasonable policy calls in performing that duty, its regulatory authority is strictly bounded by law. Today's EPA too often seems to impose requirements that go beyond what is authorized or needed. And this overreaching stifles the energy and natural resource production the nation needs to restore prosperity and technological leadership. And here's the sad thing. The resulting rules do not credibly improve public health. EPA is now proceeding with an unprecedented litany of new rules whose benefits are murky at best, but whose costs are very, very real and detrimental to human welfare. The nation can and must strike a better balance. Even in today's divided times, a broad consensus remains. Achieving affordable and abundant energy coupled with strong environmental standards, I think, is the right combination. Most would also agree that energy and environment-related public policy decisions should be based on the facts and informed by rigorous scientific discourse. Now, applying this consensus shows that really the devil is in the details here. So let's look closely at the MACT rule. If this rule is allowed to stand, it will put electric reliability at unacceptable risk and raise electricity costs with very little, if any, appreciable benefit to human health. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, which is the independent federally certified electric reliability organization, recently reported that environmental regulations are shown to be the #1 risk to reliability over the next 5 years. That's the statement from NERC. The members of the relatively small and apolitical groups of engineers who keep the lights on and administer electricity markets, they tell me that they're worried today not only about the reliability of electric service, but about its affordability. And I'd like to speak to the affordability side in just a minute here. Reasonable regulation, clearly appropriate. And EPA has the discretion, indeed the obligation, I think, to adopt balanced rules. But unfortunately, EPA's approach has been aimed more at its statutory obligations. Through MACT and through other rules, EPA wants to influence how investments in energy production are made, and so it's imposed a series of very stringent obligations that perhaps are not even achievable. For example, the Institute of Clean Air Companies, which is an association representing emissions control technology vendors, these are the guys who sell all this stuff, has asked EPA to reconsider MACT, and they've said that our member companies cannot ensure that the new final source mercury standard can be achieved in practice. These are those that would make a profit off of selling these, and they're saying they don't think that it can be achieved. Even though I believe the United Mine Workers of America, who say that their comments and like-minded ones to EPA on the proposed MACT rule were ignored, it doesn't have to be this way. EPA received thousands of pages of very detailed, very thoughtful proposals for improving MACT. About 150 electric generators filed their comments. Edison Electric Institute, as just one example, filed more than 75 pages of very precise observations for improvements in MACT, and they suggested many very, very specific changes. The states were active too, 27 states seeking significant changes in the proposal. There were almost 20 petitions for reconsideration pending at EPA, and they're pending now. 30 petitions have been filed for judicial review. 24 states, Madam President, have asked the courts to force EPA to do better with MACT. Now, I always say that we need to give credit where credit is due. On the treatment of condensable particulate matter, not many of us are focused on condensable particulate matter, but EPA has made some good changes with regards to that between the proposed and the final MATS rule. This reduced dramatically the need for construction of expensive pollution control devices known as bag houses. By itself, this one change to the proposed rule reduced the overall cost of compliance by billions of dollars, and it relieves somewhat the challenges of maintaining electric reliability while achieving compliance with the rule. Adopting a more reasonable approach in this one area did not sacrifice any appreciable benefit. So more must be done. Congress must tell EPA to revisit other suggestions for similar improvements. And why the need to keep forcing the improvements? Well, the vast majority of the benefits that the EPA claims from MATS are the results of its counting coincidental reductions of particulate matter below standards that EPA has determined are sufficient to protect public health. Emissions of mercury by American power plants have declined over the past 20 years without the MATS rule. EPA itself estimates the annual benefits of mercury reductions attributable to the rule at only $500,000 to $6 million, but annual costs at about $10 billion. Now finally, Madam President, EPA's actions are driving up the cost of electricity too. PJM, which is the independent regional transmission organization that's responsible for coordinating the movement of wholesale electricity in all or part of 13 states, as well as here in the nation's capital, they reported 2-year capacity price increases of 390%, most of which it attributed to the cost of environmental compliance, with a nearly 1,200% spike in northern Ohio. PJM also plans for about $2 billion in additional transmission investment to maintain reliability in the face of EPA rules. Clearly, these are significant costs that will be passed on to our consumers. Madam President, I think MATS is a major rule that needs a major reset by Congress. EPA could then devise a new rule that's truly aimed at protecting public health and carrying out the law rather than trying to push a particular fuel, coal, out of the market. With that, Madam President, I thank the senator from Oklahoma for his leadership on this issue, and I yield the floor.